Evelyn Warren was 3 champagne glasses deep and holding a priceless jade artifact when she caught her fiancé screwing her mentor behind the Goryeo pottery. So she did the only logical thing. Begged the tattooed crime lord everyone was terrified of to kiss her right there in front of 200 witnesses. And what happened next destroyed her career, landed him in prison, and somehow built an empire. But I'll let the story show you how. And there you have it. Loves. Another scandal that started with betrayal and ended with an empire. If you're obsessed with dangerous men who change for the right woman, art authenticators who refuse to play it safe, and love stories built on survival and passion, you're exactly where you need to be. Hit that subscribe button because we have more forbidden romances headed your way. Revenge that turns into love. All the tension and triumph you crave. Smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you're doing right now and what city you're in. Are you listening during your commute, at work, late night winding down? And where in the world are you? I love knowing where my story lovers are tuning in from. Evelyn Warren had spent 6 months preparing for tonight. The Seoul National Museum's International Gala was her moment. The youngest art authenticator Sotheby's Asia had ever appointed. Tasked with verifying a $50 million Joseon Dynasty painting before the auction tomorrow. Her reputation, her career, her entire future balanced on this single evening. Crystal chandeliers cast amber light across the grand hall, illuminating Korea's elite mingling with international collectors. Women in couture gowns, men in tailored suits, champagne flowing like water. The air hummed with wealth and power and possibility. Evelyn moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her black silk dress elegant and professional, her mind cataloguing faces she'd need to remember. Somewhere in this glittering crowd, her fiancé David was supposed to be networking with investors, building connections for their shared dream, opening a private authentication consultancy after they married next spring. He'd kissed her goodbye 3 hours ago, promised this night would change their lives. Instead, she found him with his tongue down her former mentor's throat. They were behind the Goryeo Celadon pottery display, half hidden by a marble column. But Evelyn saw everything. His hands on Dr. Sarah Kim's waist, her fingers tangled in his hair, their mouths locked together with the kind of desperate hunger that spoke of practice, of repetition, of this not being the first time. The ancient jade artifact Evelyn had been examining suddenly felt like a weapon in her hands. Dr. Kim, 52 years old, distinguished professor, the woman who'd trained Evelyn, who'd recommended her to Sotheby's, who'd been at their engagement party 6 months ago toasting their future. The engagement ring on Evelyn's finger burned like accusation. "You absolute bastard." Her voice came out steady, colder than the moet she'd been about to serve the Japanese ambassador. Professional, precise. The same tone she used to declare a painting fraudulent. David jumped back, lipstick smeared across his mouth like evidence. Dr. Kim didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She just smiled, that venomous smile that suddenly made sense. Every dismissive comment about Evelyn's ambition, every subtle criticism disguised as mentorship. "Evelyn, this isn't what it looks like," David started, which was possibly the stupidest thing he could have said, given that his hand was still on Dr. Kim's ass. The champagne bottle in Evelyn's other hand suddenly felt very, very heavy. "How long?" she demanded, her authenticator's training keeping her voice measured even as her world crumbled. "How long have you been sleeping with her?" Dr. Kim laughed. Actually laughed. "Since you were in Paris authenticating that Monet." 3 months, darling. He said you were too married to your work anyway. that you made him feel invisible. 3 months, a quarter of a year. While Evelyn had been building their future, he'd been destroying it. The museum's jazz quartet played something romantic, obscenely cheerful, while her life imploded between the Celadon pottery and the Joseon paintings. "Eve, listen." David reached for her. She stepped back fast, colliding hard with someone solid. Strong hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. The scent hit her immediately. Oud wood, tobacco, something darker underneath. Gunpowder maybe. Expensive and lethal. "Careful." A voice rumbled above her head, dark and smooth like aged whiskey. "That champagne is older than most people in this room. Wasted on trash, and I'll consider it a personal insult." Evelyn turned and found herself staring at a chest in a perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit. She tilted her head back, and met eyes like black glass, beautiful, cold, absolutely predatory. The man looked like violence wrapped in silk, sharp cheekbones, ink-black hair slicked back, a jaw that could cut glass. But it was the tattoo that made her breath catch. Traditional Korean patterns crawling up his neck from beneath his collar. Dragons and tigers rendered in black ink, the kind of artwork that marked him as something other than the wealthy collectors surrounding them. A scar bisected his left eyebrow, pale against golden skin. He was looking at David and Dr. Kim with the kind of disdain usually reserved for something stuck to your shoe. Around them, the crowd had gone strangely quiet. People were backing away, creating a circle of space like this stranger was radioactive. Evelyn noticed men in dark suits positioning themselves at exits, not obviously, but deliberate. Security that didn't need to carry visible weapons. "Who the hell are you?" David demanded, trying to reclaim some authority, but his voice cracked. "Someone who appreciates fine art more than you appreciate fine women, apparently." The stranger's hand was still on Evelyn's shoulder, warm through the silk of her dress. "This museum belongs to people I do business with. I don't tolerate mediocre men making scenes at quality events." There was something in the way he said business that made David go pale. "Kang Min," someone whispered nearby, and the name rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Evelyn knew that name. Everyone in the art world knew that name. The man who controlled the underground market for stolen masterpieces across Asia. The collector who moved artifacts that museums would kill for. Interpol had been building a case against him for years, and she'd just backed into him like a clumsy fool. The champagne was making everything fuzzy, or maybe it was shock. But suddenly, Evelyn had the worst, most brilliant idea of her entire life. She turned in Kang Min's grip, looking up at this dangerous stranger with his scarred face and his predator's eyes and his neck full of warning signs. "I need a favor," she heard herself say. "I need a favor," Evelyn heard herself say, her words slightly slurred. She'd been stress sampling wine all evening, 4 glasses of Moët and half a bottle of Chateau Margaux, because the Italian ambassador had cancelled. "Can you kiss me? I want to make him jealous." The entire grand hall seemed to hold its breath. Kang Min's eyebrows rose fractionally, the only sign of surprise on his otherwise impassive face. Up close, she could see flecks of amber in those dark eyes, could see the way his jaw tightened as he studied her face with unsettling intensity. "You're drunk," he observed, not unkindly. "I'm devastated," Evelyn corrected, swaying slightly in her heels. "But also drunk, yes, please. I just caught my fiancé with my mentor and I refuse to be the pathetic one at my own authentication gala." She could feel David staring, could feel Dr. Kim's shock radiating across the space between them. The entire museum had stopped pretending not to watch. Camera phones were emerging from designer clutches. This would be gossip for months. Kang Min's hand moved from her shoulder to cup her jaw, his thumb brushing her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. He had calluses, she noticed hazily. This was a man who did more than sign papers and collect art. "Do you have any idea who I am?" His voice was low enough that only she could hear, intimate as a secret. "A man who appreciates fine art," Evelyn quoted back at him, reckless with heartbreak and champagne. "And apparently someone everyone's terrified of, which makes you perfect for making my cheating bastard of an ex-fiancé lose his mind." Something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe. Or interest. His thumb traced her lower lip, and Evelyn's breath caught despite everything. Up close, he smelled like expensive cigars and something darker. Gunpowder, perhaps. Danger, definitely. "This is a terrible idea," Kang Min murmured, but he was already lowering his head. "All my best ideas are terrible," Evelyn whispered back. When his mouth touched hers, the entire world disappeared. The kiss started as performance. Evelyn was certain of that. Kang Min was simply doing a drunk woman a favor, giving her a moment of dignity in front of her cheating fiancé. But somewhere between the first touch of his lips and the second breath, it stopped being theater and became something else entirely. His mouth was warm and tasted like the vintage scotch she'd authenticated earlier. Smoke and complexity and something darker underneath. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss, and Evelyn forgot they had an audience. Forgot that she'd only asked for a simple kiss. Forgot everything except the way his other hand had moved to her waist, pulling her closer against that expensive suit. She made a sound, something embarrassingly desperate, and felt him smile against her mouth. Then he bit her lower lip, gentle but possessive, and Evelyn's knees actually buckled. He caught her, of course, shifted his weight to support hers, as if women fainted into his arms every day. Maybe they did. When he finally pulled back, she was breathing hard, her hands fisted in his jacket, her entire body thrumming with something that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with the way he was looking at her, like she was art, like she was valuable, like she was worth stealing. The museum erupted, gasps, whispers, the rapid-fire clicking of camera phones. Evelyn could see it happening in real time, her life becoming scandal. Photos uploading to social media, text messages flying across Seoul's elite circles. By morning, everyone would know that Evelyn Warren had kissed Kang Min at the National Museum Gala. David looked like he'd been slapped. Dr. Kim's face had gone white with shock or maybe fury. Good. Let them feel a fraction of what she'd felt finding them together. "Well," Kang Min said softly, his hand still at her waist. "That was more interesting than I expected." Evelyn started, but couldn't finish. What was she supposed to say? "Thank you for the revenge kiss. Sorry I used you as a prop in my personal drama." "You should sit down before you fall down," he continued. And there was something almost gentle in his tone now. "How much have you had to drink?" "Not enough," Evelyn muttered. But she let him guide her to a nearby bench, her legs unsteady beneath her. The crowd was still staring. David had disappeared, run off probably. Dr. Kim was watching them with an expression Evelyn couldn't read. Anger maybe, or calculation. Kang Min pulled out his phone, spoke rapid Korean to someone, then pocketed it. "My car will take you home. You're in no condition to drive, and I suspect the vultures," he gestured at the crowd with their cameras, "will be waiting for statements you shouldn't make while intoxicated." "I don't even know you," Evelyn said, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind crushing humiliation and bone-deep fatigue. "No," he agreed, "but you kissed me anyway. Quite thoroughly, I might add." That almost smile again. "I'm Kang Min, and you've just made both our lives significantly more complicated." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be." He straightened, adjusting his cuffs with casual precision. "I haven't been interested in anything for a very long time, Miss Warren. You just became interesting." Before she could respond, a man in a dark suit appeared at his elbow. "The car is ready, sir." Kang Min looked down at her one last time. "Go home, sleep it off. And when you wake up to find yourself all over the internet, remember, you started this, which means you get to decide how it ends." Then he was gone, moving through the crowd like a shark through water, people parting automatically to let him pass. Evelyn sat on the bench, her lips still tingling, her heart still racing, and realized she'd just kissed the most dangerous man in Seoul, and she wanted to do it again. Evelyn woke to her phone vibrating like a swarm of angry bees. 47 missed calls, 236 text messages. Her Instagram notifications had stopped counting at 999 plus. She grabbed her phone with trembling hands, squinting against the late morning light filtering through her bedroom curtains. The first thing she saw was her own face. The photo was everywhere, trending on Twitter, splashed across Korean entertainment sites, shared in group chats she hadn't even known existed. Her and Kang Min, his hand in her hair, her body pressed against his, their mouths locked together with the kind of intensity that made heat crawl up her neck even now. The headlines were worse. Sotheby's rising star in scandal with underground king. Art authenticator Evelyn Warren kisses notorious crime lord at museum gala. Who is Kang Min's mystery woman? Her work email had 17 messages from Sotheby's executives. Her personal inbox had interview requests from 3 different news outlets. Someone had already created a hashtag, Wizard Museum Kiss. "Oh God," Evelyn whispered, her stomach churning. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." What had she done? She'd kissed a criminal, in public, at a professional event, while drunk and devastated and stupid with champagne and heartbreak. Her career was over. Sotheby's would fire her. Every museum, every gallery, every collector who'd ever trusted her judgment would see those photos and assume she was compromised. Corrupt, involved with the man who'd stolen half the masterpieces currently missing from European collections. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed her best friend Rachel. "Are you alive?" Rachel demanded the second Evelyn picked up. "Because the entire art world thinks you've either lost your mind or been kidnapped by the Korean Mafia." "I'm alive," Evelyn croaked. Mortified, but alive. "Evie, what were you thinking? That's Kang Min. Kang Min. The man makes museum directors break out in cold sweats. Interpol has a file on him thicker than a phone book." "I know," Evelyn said miserably. "I wasn't thinking. I found David with Dr. Kim, and I snapped. I wanted to make him jealous, and Kang Min was there, and I was drunk, and..." "Wait, David cheated? With Sarah Kim?" Rachel's voice went sharp. "That spineless, mediocre little..." "3 months," Evelyn said. "They've been sleeping together for 3 months." Rachel swore creatively in 3 languages. "Okay, that explains the temporary insanity. But Evie, you kissed a crime lord at your authentication gala, in front of 200 witnesses and apparently every smartphone in Seoul." "I know." Evelyn pressed her palm against her forehead. "What do I do?" "Honestly, lay low. Don't talk to reporters. Hope Sotheby's has a sense of humor about viral scandals. And maybe consider changing your name and moving to Antarctica." After Rachel hung up, promising to bring coffee and sympathy later, Evelyn forced herself to shower, to pretend she was a functional human being instead of a viral sensation who just destroyed her career for one reckless kiss. She was standing in her kitchen, staring at coffee she couldn't bring herself to drink, when her phone rang again. Unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail, but something, curiosity, stupidity, the same reckless impulse that had made her beg a stranger to kiss her, made her answer. Miss Warren. That voice, dark, smooth, unmistakable. I hope you're feeling better than you probably deserve to. Evelyn's hand tightened on her phone. Kang Min. You sound surprised. Did you think I wouldn't call after you made us both internationally famous? She swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. I was drunk and upset and I used you, and I never meant for it to become this enormous thing. Stop apologizing. There was amusement in his tone now. I kissed you back, if you recall, quite enthusiastically, which makes me equally responsible for our current situation. Our current situation, Evelyn repeated numbly. You mean the part where my career is over and I'm trending on social media for all the wrong reasons? Is your career over? He sounded genuinely curious. Or has it simply taken an unexpected turn? Sotheby's is going to fire me. Every museum will blacklist me. I'm the woman who kissed Kang Min. Nobody's going to trust my authentication work ever again. Perhaps you're working for the wrong people then. A pause. Meet me. Tonight. I'll send a car. Why would I? Because you're curious, Kang Min said softly. Because that kiss wasn't just performance and we both know it. And because your career just exploded and you need someone who understands how to survive scandal. I've built an empire on scandal, Miss Warren. I know how to turn reputation into leverage. Evelyn's heart was racing. This was insane. Meeting him again would only make everything worse. She should hang up, block his number, disappear into obscurity, and hope the internet eventually forgot she existed. What time? She heard herself ask instead. 8 o'clock. Wear something comfortable. We're not going anywhere public. That's not ominous at all, Evelyn muttered. His laugh was low and dangerous. You kiss me in front of 200 people, Miss Warren. We're past ominous. We're well into reckless now. Might as well commit. He hung up before she could change her mind. Evelyn stood in her kitchen, phone pressed to her chest, and wondered if she'd just agreed to date a criminal or simply dug her grave deeper. At exactly 8 o'clock, a black Lexus LS pulled up outside her building. But before we find out what happens when Evelyn steps into that car and enters Kang Min's dangerous world, let me ask you something. Would you get in that Lexus? Would you risk everything for a man everyone's terrified of? If you're dying to know what she finds in his private gallery, smash that like button right now and drop a comment telling me, have you ever made a reckless decision that changed your life? And where are you watching from? Subscribe to Story Sphere, because this story is just getting started. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's see what's waiting for Evelyn behind those closed doors. The driver didn't speak. He simply opened the door, waited for Evelyn to slide into the leather interior, then pulled smoothly into Seoul's evening traffic. She'd worn black jeans and a silk blouse, comfortable, like Kang Min had suggested, but polished enough that she didn't feel completely outmatched. The Lexus wound through Gangnam's glittering streets, past luxury boutiques and high-rise apartments, then turned into a private underground garage beneath a building with no visible signage. The kind of place that didn't need to advertise because only the right people knew it existed. The driver led her to a private elevator, pressed a code. The doors slid open directly into a penthouse gallery. Evelyn stepped out and forgot how to breathe. The space was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, hardwood floors, strategic lighting that made every piece glow like it was still being painted. But it was the art that stopped her heart. A Caravaggio hung on the far wall. Not a reproduction, the real thing. Oil on canvas, the chiaroscuro dramatic and unmistakable. Beside it, a Ming Dynasty vase that should have been in Beijing's Forbidden City. A Rembrandt sketch she recognized from Interpol's missing art database. Egyptian artifacts, Renaissance sculptures, modern pieces worth millions. Every single item stolen. Breathtaking, isn't it? Kang Min's voice came from behind her. She turned. He'd changed from the Tom Ford suit into dark slacks and a black button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The tattoo on his neck seemed more prominent now, dragons and tigers writhing in the gallery's soft light. He looked dangerous and beautiful and completely at ease, surrounded by stolen masterpieces. This is... Evelyn struggled for words. This should all be in museums. These pieces belong to the world, not locked in a private collection. Do they? He moved closer, hands in his pockets. The Caravaggio was rotting in a Vatican basement, forgotten for decades until I liberated it. The Ming vase was owned by a collector who kept it in storage, never displayed, never appreciated. The Rembrandt was seized by Nazis, sold through black markets, passed between people who saw only investment value. That doesn't make stealing them right, doesn't it? He gestured around the gallery. Everything here is seen, appreciated, preserved properly. I employ the best conservators in Asia. These pieces are safer here than in underfunded museums or private collections where owners die and heirs sell to the highest bidder. Evelyn walked toward the Caravaggio, her authenticator's eye automatically analyzing. This is real. I've studied this piece. It disappeared from Rome 2 years ago. 3 years, Kang Min corrected, coming to stand beside her. And it's magnificent, isn't it? The way he captures light and shadow, the humanity in the faces. Caravaggio painted truth, not beauty. That's why his work endures. She could hear the genuine reverence in his voice. This wasn't a man who stole for profit. He stole because he loved art, because he couldn't bear beauty being wasted, which somehow made it worse. You asked me here to seduce me into working for you, Evelyn said quietly, to use my authentication skills for your collection. I asked you here because I wanted to see you again, Kang Min replied. The job offer is secondary. She turned to face him. Why? Why what? Why do you want to see me again? You don't know me. That kiss was revenge theatre, performance. Was it? He stepped closer, and suddenly the space between them felt electric. Because I remember you making a sound against my mouth that had nothing to do with performance. I remember the way you kissed me back like you were drowning and I was air. Heat crawled up Evelyn's neck. I was drunk. You were honest. His hand lifted, fingers brushing her jaw the same way he had at the museum. People lie with words all the time, but bodies tell the truth, and your body told me you felt exactly what I felt. Which was, her voice came out breathless, recognition. His thumb traced her lower lip. I look at stolen art and see beauty the world tried to lock away. You authenticate truth from lies for a living. We both see what others miss. That's a pretty speech for a criminal. I never claimed to be good, Miss Warren, but I'm honest about what I am. Can you say the same? The question hung between them, weighted with meaning she wasn't ready to unpack. Your career is damaged, Kang Min continued, stepping back to give her space. Sotheby's will likely terminate your contract within the week. They can't afford association with me. Museums will be wary. Collectors will question your judgment. But you're brilliant, Evelyn. You can spot a forgery from across a room. That skill doesn't disappear because you kissed the wrong man. You want me to authenticate stolen art? I want you to authenticate pieces I'm acquiring. Some through legal channels, auctions, estate sales, legitimate dealers. Some through less conventional means, but all of it properly preserved, properly documented. I'll pay you triple what Sotheby's paid, and I'll teach you how to survive scandal. By becoming complicit in art theft, by building a life on your own terms instead of letting society dictate your worth. He poured 2 glasses of wine from a bottle she recognized. Chateau Margaux, the same vintage from the gala. Offered her one. You kissed me to spite your ex-fiancé, to reclaim power in a moment you felt powerless. I'm offering you the chance to keep that power. Evelyn took the glass but didn't drink. This is insane. Yes, Kang Min agreed. But you came anyway, which means some part of you is considering it. She looked at the Caravaggio, at the Ming vase, at a room full of beauty that should belong to everyone, but belonged only to him. One authentication, she heard herself say. Legal acquisition only, if I say yes. His smile was slow and dangerous. One authentication, to start. The one authentication became 3, then 7. Then Evelyn stopped counting. Kang Min kept his word. Every piece he brought her was legally acquired. Estate sales, private auctions, dealers with legitimate paperwork. She verified a Monet from a Paris auction house, authenticated a Joseon dynasty scroll purchased from a Korean collector's widow, examined Tang dynasty pottery bought through Christie's. She was good at her work, better than good, and he paid her exactly what he'd promised. Triple her Sotheby's salary, deposited in an account she'd opened specifically for this arrangement. Money she told herself was temporary, just until her reputation recovered and real galleries would hire her again. Except her reputation wasn't recovering, it was mutating. Art authenticator Evelyn Warren, seen with Kang Min again. Is Seoul's youngest expert working for the underground? From museum darling to Mafia associate, the fall of Evelyn Warren. Rachel called weekly, increasingly worried. Her parents stopped returning her messages. Sotheby's had terminated her contract officially 3 weeks after the kiss, citing conduct unbecoming of company standards. David had moved to Singapore with Dr. Kim. Someone had sent her the wedding announcement just to twist the knife. And through it all, Kang Min was there, not just as an employer, as something she couldn't quite define. He'd shown her his collection gradually, not just the stolen pieces, but his legitimate acquisitions. A private library of rare art books, conservation equipment worth millions. He employed a team of experts who restored damaged paintings, preserved ancient artifacts, documented everything with meticulous care. You really do love it, Evelyn said one evening, watching him examine a newly acquired Renaissance sketch with the kind of reverence most people reserved for religious experiences. Art saved my life, Kang Min replied without looking up. When I was 12, living on the streets of Busan, I broke into a museum to get warm, spent the night in the Renaissance gallery, saw my first Botticelli, and I understood for the first time that beauty could exist even in a world full of ugliness. He'd never told her that before, never revealed anything personal beyond his criminal reputation and his artistic obsession. How did you go from homeless to this? She gestured at the penthouse, the collection, the empire. I learned that people with power wanted things they couldn't have legally. Art, artifacts, access. So I became the person who could get those things. Started small, forged documents, made connections, took risks nobody else would take, built an empire on the black market. He finally looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers. I'm not proud of everything I've done, but I'm not ashamed either. I survived the only way I knew how. Evelyn moved closer, drawn by something in his voice. Vulnerability, maybe, or simply recognition. They were both survivors who'd built identities around things other people wanted. The pieces you stole, she said quietly. Do you ever feel guilty? Sometimes. His honesty surprised her. But then I think about museums with storage facilities full of masterpieces nobody will ever see. Private collectors who buy art as investment, never display it, never appreciate it. Governments that let culture rot while politicians steal budgets. And I think, at least I see it, at least here, it's preserved and valued. That's still theft. Yes. He set down the sketch. But so is locking beauty away where only elites can access it. We just steal different things. The logic was twisted, self-serving, morally bankrupt, and somehow, standing in his gallery surrounded by beauty he'd stolen, Evelyn understood it anyway. I'm complicit now, she whispered. Even if everything you've shown me is legal, I know about the rest. I know this collection exists. That makes me free, Kang Min finished, stepping close enough that she could feel his warmth. It makes you free from the system that judged you for one kiss. Free from people who'd rather you be mediocre and acceptable than brilliant and scandalous. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone the way he had at the museum. But this time, there was no audience, no performance. Just them in the quiet gallery with stolen beauty surrounding them. I want you, he said simply. Not just your expertise, you. You barely know me. I know you're brilliant. I know you see truth in brushstrokes and authenticity in details others miss. I know you kiss me with 4 glasses of champagne in your system and no pretense left. And I know you keep coming back here even though it's dangerous. Maybe I'm just using you for the money, Evelyn said, but her voice had gone breathless. Maybe. His smile was slight. Or maybe you're as tired of performing respectability as I am of hiding what I am. He kissed her then, not the desperate performance from the museum, but something slower, deeper. His mouth moved against hers with deliberate intent, tasting and claiming and learning. Evelyn's hands slid into his hair, pulling him closer. And this time, when she made that desperate sound, there was no champagne to blame. Just want. Pure and complicated and terrifying. They made love against the wall beneath the Caravaggio, urgent and consuming, clothes pushed aside rather than removed, both of them too desperate to make it to a bedroom. Afterward, still pressed together and breathing hard, Kang Min traced patterns on her skin, like she was art he was memorizing. Move in with me, he said against her throat. That's insane. You've been complicit for 2 months already. Might as well commit fully. Kang Min. Marry me, he continued, pulling back to look at her. Not now, soon. When you're ready. Marry me and we'll build something legitimate. A private gallery, a consulting firm, your expertise, my connections, everything legal and documented and clean. You'd go legitimate. For me. I'd burn the entire underworld for you. His intensity was frightening. I've spent 15 years building this empire. And in 2 months, you've made me want to walk away from all of it. Evelyn stared at him. This dangerous, complicated man who stole beauty and kept it close, and realized she was already falling. Ask me again, she whispered. In a month, when I've had time to think. I'll ask you every day until you say yes. She said yes on a Tuesday. 4 months after that first kiss. 3 months after she'd started authenticating his acquisitions. 2 months after she'd moved into the penthouse gallery. Kang Min had asked every single day, exactly as promised. And on a random Tuesday morning over coffee, Evelyn finally said yes. They married quietly. No guests, no gala, just a judge in a private office and 2 witnesses Kang Min paid to sign paperwork. Evelyn wore cream silk. He wore black. They exchanged simple platinum bands and kissed like they had all the time in the world. Mrs. Kang, he murmured against her mouth, and she'd laughed because it sounded absurd and perfect and terrifying. They had 3 perfect weeks, 3 weeks of planning their legitimate gallery, 3 weeks of mornings tangled in expensive sheets and evenings examining art, 3 weeks of Evelyn believing they could actually build something clean from something stolen. Then the doors exploded inward at 5 in the morning. Evelyn jerked awake to shouting, flashlight beams cutting through darkness, and boots thundering across hardwood floors. Kang Min was already moving, pulling on pants, his face grim but unsurprised. "Stay in bed," he ordered. "Say nothing." "Min, what?" "Kang Min," a voice shouted in accented Korean. "Interpol, hands where we can see them." The bedroom flooded with armed agents, not Korean police, but international forces wearing tactical gear and Interpol insignia. Behind them, American FBI consultants, European investigators, a coordinated effort that must have taken months to organize. They handcuffed Kang Min in their bedroom. Evelyn watched, frozen, as they zip-tied his wrists and read him rights in 3 languages. He didn't resist, didn't fight, just stood there with that blank expression while they catalogued his crimes. "Kang Min, you are under arrest for international art trafficking, smuggling of cultural artifacts, conspiracy to commit theft, money laundering." The list went on, and on. An agent turned to Evelyn, still sitting in bed clutching sheets to her chest. "Mrs. Kang, you need to come with us for questioning." "She's not involved," Kang Min said immediately. "She authenticates legal acquisitions. She knows nothing about my other business." "That's for investigators to determine." They let her dress, jeans, sweater, shaking hands that could barely work buttons. Led her out through the gallery where more agents were photographing everything, documenting the Caravaggio, the Ming vase, the Rembrandt. Evidence tags on beauty, prison bars for art. In the elevator, Kang Min caught her eye. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was quiet and certain. "Say nothing. Admit nothing. My lawyers will handle everything." "They're saying years, Min," Evelyn whispered, her throat tight. "Decades. Then wait for me." His jaw tightened. "However long it takes, wait for me." They separated them at the station, put Evelyn in an interrogation room for 6 hours, asking about pieces she'd authenticated, dates she'd visited the penthouse, financial transactions. She told the truth. Every piece she'd examined had legal documentation. She'd verified provenance, checked auction records, confirmed authenticity. The investigators didn't believe her. "You're married to one of Asia's most notorious art smugglers. You expect us to think you never noticed the Caravaggio on his wall, the artifacts from closed investigations. You're either complicit or willfully blind, Mrs. Kang." "I authenticated legal acquisitions," Evelyn repeated, exhausted. "That's all." They released her after 14 hours. No charges filed, but the warning was clear. She was under investigation. They'd be watching, building a case. She went home to the penthouse to find it ransacked. Every piece of art gone, seized as evidence. The gallery stripped bare. Even their bed had been searched. mattress overturned, sheets tangled on the floor. Evelyn stood in the empty space and finally let herself cry. The trial took 3 months to organize. International tribunal. Too many countries wanted him. Evidence presented from 12 different investigations across 8 countries. Years of smuggling, tens of millions in stolen art. A network that spanned continents. The media coverage was relentless. Underground King falls. Kang Min faces decades in prison. Art world scandal. How one man stole millions in masterpieces. Wife of accused smuggler under investigation. Every news outlet ran photos of Evelyn entering the courthouse. Social media dissected her choices. Marrying him, working for him, claiming ignorance. Opinion pieces debated whether she was victim or accomplice. Rachel visited once, bringing coffee and sympathy and carefully neutral questions about what Evelyn had really known. Her parents sent a lawyer's letter suggesting she distance herself publicly, maybe file for divorce, protect herself from association. Evelyn ignored them all. She attended every day of the trial, sat in the back row watching prosecutors present evidence, smuggling routes, forged documents, testimony from dealers and conservators who'd facilitated his network. The Caravaggio he'd shown her, the Ming vase, the Rembrandt, all confirmed stolen. Everything in his collection except the pieces she'd personally authenticated had been acquired through illegal means. He'd kept his word. He'd never asked her to touch anything questionable, but he'd surrounded her with stolen beauty anyway. On the witness stand, they called her for character testimony, asked about her relationship, her knowledge of his business, her involvement in his collection. I authenticated legally acquired pieces, Evelyn said steadily. My husband kept his criminal activities separate from our work together. I was aware of his reputation, but I never participated in, facilitated, or profited from any illegal acquisitions. But you married him knowing what he was. I married him knowing who he was. She looked directly at Kang Min for the first time in weeks, and I don't regret it. The verdict came on a Friday. Guilty on all counts. Recommended sentence, 5 years in maximum security Korean prison, with additional sentences pending from other countries. Kang Min's face remained expressionless as the judge read the sentence. But when they led him away in handcuffs, he looked back once, found Evelyn in the crowd, mouthed, "Wait for me." She nodded, even though 5 years felt like forever. Year 1 was survival. Interpol cleared Evelyn of criminal charges after 4 months of investigation. They'd found no evidence she'd knowingly authenticated stolen pieces or participated in Kang Min's smuggling network. Every transaction she'd handled had legitimate paperwork, verified provenance, clean documentation. But cleared of crimes didn't mean cleared of judgment. The art world blacklisted her completely. Sotheby's had already fired her. Christie's rejected her application without interview. Private galleries hung up when she called. Museums deleted her emails unread. The Metropolitan in New York, the Louvre in Paris, the National Gallery in London, institutions she dreamed of working with, wanted nothing to do with the woman who'd married Kang Min. She was toxic, scandal-adjacent, unemployable. Evelyn took a job doing insurance fraud investigations for a company that didn't care about her reputation, just her ability to spot forgeries. The work was tedious, verifying claims, examining damaged pieces, writing reports. Nothing like the prestigious authentication work she'd trained for. She visited Kang Min once a month. The prison was 12 hours from Seoul by train and bus. Maximum security facility in the mountains, grey concrete and barbed wire and guards who searched her thoroughly every visit. She was allowed 30 minutes, separated by bulletproof glass, speaking through phones that crackled with static. "You look tired," Kang Min said during their first visit. He wore prison grey, his hair shorter, the tattoo on his neck stark against pale skin. But his eyes were the same, dark and intense and focused entirely on her. "I'm fine," Evelyn lied. "You're not sleeping. You've lost weight. And you're working insurance fraud investigations instead of authentication." He'd always been observant. "Evie, you don't have to do this. You could divorce me, rebuild your career without my name attached. I'm not divorcing you. 5 years is a long time. Then I'll wait 5 years." Her hand pressed against the glass. "You asked me to wait, so I'm waiting." His jaw tightened. "I never meant to destroy your career." "You didn't destroy it. They did." Evelyn gestured vaguely toward the world outside. "Everyone who decided one kiss meant I was corrupt. Everyone who judged me for loving you. That's on them, not you." Year 2 was harder. The insurance work paid bills, but hollowed her out. Evelyn spent evenings in her small apartment. She'd had to leave the penthouse when it was seized as asset forfeiture, examining art books and remembering what her career used to be. What she used to be. Rachel stopped visiting after Evelyn refused to badmouth Kang Min at a dinner party. Her parents sent birthday cards, but no actual communication. David sent a message through a mutual friend suggesting she finally move on from that criminal. She blocked his number and went back to work. But something was shifting inside her, a quiet determination replacing the grief. If the legitimate art world wouldn't hire her, maybe she didn't need them. Evelyn started consulting online. Anonymous authentication services through encrypted channels. Clients sent her high-resolution photos, provenance documents, technical questions. She analyzed brushstrokes, verified signatures, spotted forgeries. No name attached, just expertise. Her reputation grew slowly. The ghost authenticator in certain circles. Someone who could verify pieces without judgment, without institutional politics, without caring about the client's legitimacy. She wasn't breaking laws. Everything she examined had documentation. But she was working outside the system that had rejected her. The money was better than insurance fraud. The work was satisfying. And during prison visits, she could tell Kang Min about interesting pieces she'd examined, technical challenges she'd solved, the life she was building in the margins. "You're becoming what I was," he observed during a Year 3 visit. His face had hardened in prison. Sharper cheekbones, harder eyes, but still beautiful in that dangerous way. Working outside traditional systems, building reputation through competence instead of credentials. "Maybe," Evelyn admitted, "or maybe I'm just surviving the only way I know how. I did this to you. No, you loved me. They did this because they couldn't handle a woman choosing a complicated man over a respectable career." Year 3 and 4 blurred together. Evelyn's anonymous consulting grew. She authenticated pieces for private collectors across Asia, verified paintings for European dealers, consulted on fraud cases for law firms, built a client base that didn't care about her name, only her accuracy. She saved money. Every payment went into an account she'd labeled after, for after Kang Min's release, for the legitimate gallery they'd dreamed about, for the life they'd build when he was free. Prison visits became ritual. Once monthly, 12-hour journey, 30 minutes separated by glass. They talked about art, about her work, about the world outside. Never about the time remaining. Never about whether they'd survive this. But Evelyn saw the changes in him. Prison was stripping away the polished criminal and revealing something raw underneath. He told her about inmates he'd befriended, Books he'd read, how he'd started teaching art history to other prisoners using memory and description since he had no images. "You're rehabilitating yourself," Evelyn said during a Year 4 visit. "I'm discovering who I am without the collection." Kang Min's hand pressed against the glass opposite, hers. "Turns out I still love art even when I can't possess it. Maybe I never needed to steal it. Maybe I just needed to stop being the child who was told beauty wasn't for people like me. So when you get out, when I get out, we go completely legitimate. No questionable acquisitions, no grey market deals, no testing boundaries. Clean business, clean reputation, clean start. You'd really walk away from it. I already have." His eyes were certain. "I've had 5 years to think about what matters. And it's not art. It's you." Year 5. Evelyn submitted business registration documents for Warren Kang Art Consulting. Secured a small gallery space in Seoul. Contacted her legitimate clients, the ones who'd worked with her anonymous services, and offered transition to official consulting. Most said yes. She prepared everything alone. Website, business plan, client contracts. Built the foundation for their legitimate future while Kang Min finished his sentence. The week before his release, she visited one final time. "I have a surprise," Evelyn said, smiling for the first time in months. "Tell me. When you get out, you're not coming home to nothing. You're coming home to a gallery, our gallery, everything legal, everything documented, ready for us to build together." Kang Min stared at her through the glass, and for the first time since his arrest, she saw tears in his eyes. "5 years," he whispered. "You waited 5 years." "I promised." Evelyn pressed her hand against the glass. "One more week, then we start over." Release day arrived on a Thursday morning in October. Evelyn stood outside the prison gates at dawn, wearing jeans and a leather jacket, her hair longer than it had been 5 years ago, her face older but stronger. She'd driven 12 hours through the night because she couldn't wait, couldn't stand another moment separated by bulletproof glass and crackling phone lines. The gates opened at 6:30. Kang Min walked out carrying a single box of possessions, books mostly, letters she'd sent, drawings he'd made from memory of pieces in his former collection. He was thinner than she remembered, harder in ways that had nothing to do with muscle. Prison grey traded for the clothes she'd sent ahead. Black jeans, simple sweater, leather jacket that matched hers. He saw her and stopped walking. They stared at each other across 20 feet of cracked pavement, 5 years compressed into a single held breath. Then Evelyn was running, and he was dropping the box, and they collided with enough force to bruise. His arms came around her like iron, lifting her off the ground, face buried in her neck. She felt him shaking, or maybe that was her. Impossible to tell where she ended and he began. "You waited," Kang Min whispered against her throat, his voice broken. 5 years. You actually waited." "I promised." Evelyn pulled back just enough to cup his face, thumbs tracing the sharper angles 5 years had carved. "I love you. That doesn't change because of prison or time or distance." He kissed her then, desperate and claiming and home. Nothing like their first kiss at the museum. Nothing like the passion in his penthouse. This was a reunion, recognition. Two people who'd survived separation finding each other again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kang Min pressed his forehead to hers. Show me what you built." The drive back to Seoul took 12 hours. They talked about everything and nothing. His prison experience, her consulting work, books they'd read, art they'd studied. Careful conversation dancing around the weight of 5 years. around the question neither wanted to ask. Could they still work after so much time apart? But when Evelyn pulled up outside the gallery space in Itaewon, modest storefront, clean windows, their names in elegant script above the door, Kang Min went silent. "It's small," Evelyn said nervously. "Nothing like the penthouse, but it's legitimate. Every piece of equipment purchased legally, every client contract reviewed by lawyers, business registration filed with the government. We're completely clean." Kang Min got out of the car slowly, staring at the gallery like it was a masterpiece. "Warren Kang Art Consulting. I used both our names. If that's too much, if the association hurts business, it's perfect." He turned to her, and there were tears on his face again. "Evelyn, it's perfect." She unlocked the door, led him inside. The space was small but carefully designed. Authentication equipment in the back room, consultation area with proper lighting, small display space for temporary exhibitions. Everything professional, everything legitimate. "I have 6 steady clients," Evelyn explained as he moved through the space, touching surfaces like he couldn't believe they were real. 3 collectors who need regular authentication work, 2 law firms that consult on fraud cases, 1 museum that uses us for provenance verification. It's not prestigious, but it's steady income, and it's legal," Kang Min finished. He turned to face her. "You built this, alone, while I was in prison doing nothing. You were surviving. That was enough." "No." He crossed to her, hands framing her face with a gentleness that contrasted with his prison-hardened appearance. "You could have divorced me, started over without my name dragging you down, built a career that didn't include a convicted criminal. But you didn't." "I love you," Evelyn said simply. "That means something. It means everything." He kissed her again, slower this time. "I don't deserve you. I never deserved you. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to." They made love in the empty gallery, not against walls like before, but on the floor with blankets she'd brought for exactly this purpose. Slow and tender and reconnecting after 5 years of separation. Learning each other's bodies again, finding familiar rhythms, building something new from what had survived. Afterward, wrapped together in blankets with Seoul's afternoon light filtering through the windows, Kang Min traced patterns on her skin. "I'm different now," he said quietly. "Prison changes you. I'm harder, less patient. I have nightmares sometimes, and I can't promise I won't struggle with the legitimate work after years of operating outside laws." "I'm different too," Evelyn replied. "I'm more cynical, less trusting. I work alone because I don't believe institutions will support me, and I'm not sure I can ever fully forgive the art world for how they treated us. So we're both damaged. We're both survivors." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "And we're going to build something extraordinary from this damage." Over the next 2 months, they worked 18-hour days establishing the business. Kang Min's connections, the legitimate ones, the collectors and dealers who'd worked with him before his arrest, started sending clients. Evelyn's anonymous consulting reputation carried over when she revealed her identity. They built a niche. Authentication for clients who needed discretion, provenance verification for pieces with complicated histories, fraud detection for insurance companies and law firms. The work was challenging. The hours were brutal. The money was modest compared to what they'd both known before. But it was theirs. Built together, completely legal. 6 months after Kang Min's release, they authenticated their first major piece, a disputed Goryeo dynasty painting a museum wanted to acquire. Their analysis prevented a $1 million purchase of a sophisticated forgery. The museum director, grudgingly impressed, hired them for future consultations. One job became two became five became steady reputation. "We're doing it," Evelyn said one evening, reviewing contracts in their small office. "Actually building something legitimate." Kang Min looked up from the provenance documents he was studying. "You sound surprised." "I wasn't sure we could. Honest. I wasn't sure the world would let us. The world doesn't get to decide." He crossed to her, pulled her from her chair, kissed her with the kind of certainty that had first drawn her to him. "We decide. And we decided 5 years ago we were going to survive this, so we will." 2 years after Kang Min's release, Warren Kang Art Consulting had outgrown the Itaewon storefront. They'd moved to a larger space in Gangnam, 2 floors, proper conservation lab, climate-controlled storage, consultation rooms that could host international clients. The upgrade had been terrifying financially, but their reputation had grown enough to justify the risk. Their client list now included 3 major museums, a dozen private collectors across Asia and Europe, 4 law firms specializing in art fraud, and 2 insurance companies. They'd authenticated pieces ranging from Renaissance paintings to contemporary sculpture, had prevented millions in fraudulent purchases, had built a reputation for discretion and accuracy that transcended scandal. The art world still whispered about them. The criminal and his loyal wife, the smuggler turned legitimate, Evelyn Warren, who threw away her career for love. But the whispers had shifted from condemnation to reluctant respect. They were too good at their work to ignore. "We have a problem," Evelyn said one morning, reviewing their schedule. "We're booked solid for the next 6 months. We're turning away clients because we can't handle the volume." Kang Min looked up from the Joseon dynasty scroll he was examining. 3 years of legitimate work had softened some of prison's harder edges, though the tattoo on his neck and the scar through his eyebrow still marked him as dangerous. "So we hire staff." "Who's going to work for us? We're still controversial." "Young authenticators who care more about learning from the best than maintaining spotless reputations." He set down his magnifying glass. "We were both outcasts, Evie. We built this from nothing because the establishment rejected us. There are others like us, talented people the art world overlooked. We find them." They hired 3 junior authenticators over the next year. Recent graduates from programs in Seoul, Tokyo, and Hong Kong, brilliant but overlooked, hungry to prove themselves, willing to work for the notorious Warren Kang firm, because it meant working with 2 of the best. The team expanded their capabilities, took on more complex cases, started offering training seminars on authentication techniques. Their reputation grew from controversial but competent to the best in Asia for difficult cases. 3 years post-release, they got the call that changed everything. The National Museum of Korea, the same institution that had hosted the gala where everything began, wanted to hire them. A major acquisition was being questioned, a Goryeo dynasty painting purchased for 50 million won. Another firm had authenticated it, but the director had concerns. Would Warren Kang provide a second opinion? Evelyn stared at the email for 10 minutes before showing Kang Min. "That's the museum," she said unnecessarily. "Where we met, where I kissed you, where everything started. And now they're asking us to save them from a potentially fraudulent acquisition." Kang Min's smile was slight. "Poetic, don't you think? It could be a trap. Public humiliation if we're wrong. Then we make sure we're not wrong." They spent 3 weeks on the authentication. Every test they could run, pigment analysis, brushstroke examination, age verification, provenance documentation review. Evelyn worked 18-hour days, cross-referencing historical records and technical specifications. Kang Min used his encyclopedic knowledge of Goryeo dynasty art to identify inconsistencies in style and composition. Their conclusion was unanimous: sophisticated forgery. The painting was modern, created within the last decade using traditional materials to full standard testing. But the brushwork was wrong. The composition showed knowledge of styles that hadn't been codified until recent scholarship. And the provenance had subtle inconsistencies that only deep research revealed. They presented their findings to the museum board in the same conference room where Evelyn had once briefed collectors about authentic pieces. The director, who'd fired her statement after the scandal 7 years ago, sat across the table, older and less confident. "You're certain?" he asked after their presentation. "Absolutely certain," Evelyn replied. "This is an excellent forgery, but it's not authentic. If you proceed with the acquisition, you'll be purchasing a 50 million won fake." The board voted to cancel the purchase based on their analysis. The original authenticator's reputation took the hit instead. Turned out he'd been taking bribes to approve questionable pieces. Warren Kang's intervention prevented not just a bad purchase, but exposed systematic fraud. The story made national news. Controversial firm saves National Museum millions. From scandal to salvation, Warren Kang prevents major fraud, rehabilitated art smuggler, and wife expose authentication corruption. The publicity was overwhelming, but for the first time, positive. Museums that had previously rejected them started making inquiries. Collectors who'd been wary sent authentication requests. International institutions reached out about consultations. "We're not outcasts anymore," Evelyn said, reading through the flood of new emails. "We're respectable." "We're useful," Kang Min corrected. "That's better than respectable. Respectable can be revoked when we're inconvenient, but if we're the best, they need us regardless of our past." 4 years post-release, they expanded again, opened a second office in Tokyo, hired more staff, started offering training programs for young authenticators. Warren Kang became a destination, the place talented people went when they wanted to learn from experts who'd survived scandal and built empire from ruin. They were featured in Art Asia magazine, profile pieces about their journey from scandal to success, their rehabilitation, their legitimacy. The articles still mentioned Kang Min's criminal past, still referenced that first viral kiss, but framed it differently now, not as scandal, but as origin story. 5 years in prison, 2 years rebuilding, 4 years of legitimate success, Kang Min said one evening, reviewing the magazine feature. Was it worth it? Evelyn looked around their expanded gallery, climate-controlled conservation lab, junior authenticators working late on difficult cases, consultation rooms booked for months, a business they'd built from nothing that now employed 15 people. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Every moment, every struggle, it brought us here. To legitimacy and success, to partnership." She moved to stand beside him, their reflection visible in the dark windows overlooking Seoul. "We built this together. That's worth more than any reputation the art world could have given me." He pulled her close, kissed her temple. "1 more year, we'll be ready." "Ready for what?" "The gala." His smile was dangerous and beautiful. 7 years after that first kiss, we host our own exhibition, show the art world exactly who we've become. 7 years after that first kiss, they returned to the Seoul National Museum, not as scandal, as hosts. Warren Kang Art Consulting had been invited to curate a special exhibition on authentication techniques and art fraud prevention. Educational seminars, case studies, interactive displays showing how experts detected forgeries. The museum director, the same one who'd witnessed their infamous kiss, had personally requested their involvement. "Full circle," Evelyn murmured, standing in the grand hall where crystal chandeliers cast the same amber light they had 7 years ago. She wore black silk again, elegant and professional, her confidence earned through years of struggle. Kang Min stood beside her in a perfectly tailored suit, tattoo visible on his neck. No longer something to hide. "Poetic justice," he corrected, his hand resting at her waist. The gala was invitation only. 100 guests, museum directors, private collectors, art world elite, journalists covering their remarkable rehabilitation. Everyone who'd whispered about them, judged them, written them off as scandal was here to witness their triumph. At 8 o'clock, Evelyn stood to give the opening remarks. 7 years ago, she began, her voice carrying across the intimate space. I attended a gala in this very hall. I was young, ambitious, and my career was just beginning. That night, I caught my fiancée cheating. I was devastated, drunk on champagne, and made possibly the most impulsive decision of my life. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew this story. It had been legend, then gossip, now inspiration. I asked a complete stranger to kiss me, just to make my ex jealous. That stranger was Kang Min, a man whose reputation should have sent me running. Instead, he offered me something unexpected, honesty about who he was, and a chance to discover who I could become. She paused, meeting eyes across the room. Colleagues who'd supported them, clients who trusted them, even the director who'd once fired her. Everything you see tonight, this consulting firm, this reputation, this life, started with that one reckless kiss. We lost everything. My career, his freedom, 5 years to prison, our place in the art world. But we gained something more valuable. Partnership built on survival, expertise earned through struggle, and legitimacy we created ourselves when the establishment refused to give it to us. Evelyn raised her glass, filled with the same vintage champagne from 7 years ago. So here's to reckless decisions and dangerous men, to building empires from scandal, to proving that reputation isn't given, it's earned. Here's to Warren Kang Art Consulting, to second chances and hard-won legitimacy. To Warren Kang, the crowd echoed, and the evening began. Hours later, after the last guest departed and staff cleaned up, Evelyn and Kang Min sat on the museum's terrace overlooking Seoul. They'd stolen a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses, claiming a private moment in the space where their story began. "Do you regret it?" Kang Min asked quietly. "Any of it? The scandal, losing your Sotheby's career, the 5 years I was gone, being marked forever as the woman who married a criminal?" Evelyn considered the question seriously, sipping champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "I regret that David cheated. I regret the 5 years we lost to prison. But everything else?" She turned to look at him, this dangerous, complicated, reformed man who'd helped her build something extraordinary from heartbreak. "No, I don't regret loving you. I don't regret this company. I don't regret becoming someone who builds rather than begs for permission. They still call you the scandal bride in some circles. Good." Evelyn laughed. "Let them remember. We're legendary. People hire us because of our story, because we survived what should have destroyed us. That's powerful." "Your parents came tonight," Kang Min observed. First time they've acknowledged us publicly in 7 years. They can't ignore success. Evelyn shrugged. Respectability they could reject, but expertise and reputation earned through competence, that they have to acknowledge. And David, send congratulations through a mutual contact. Apparently his authentication business failed last year. He's working for a small gallery in Singapore now, doing basic appraisals. Do you feel anything? Nothing, Evelyn said honestly. He's irrelevant, a footnote in a story that became so much bigger than revenge. Kang Min set down his glass and pulled her into his lap, arms circling her waist. 7 years, prison, scandal, rebuilding, success. Was it worth it? Every single moment. She kissed him, soft, certain home. We built something real, not handed to us, not given through connections or privilege. We earned every client, every reputation point, every moment of respect. That's worth more than any career the establishment could have given me. They sat together as Seoul's light sparkled below, the museum quiet around them. In their offices across the city, authentication equipment stood ready for tomorrow's cases. Junior staff would arrive at 9, clients at 10, consultations scheduled through the end of the year. Warren Kang had become what they'd dreamed, legitimate, respected, essential. Come on, Evelyn said eventually, standing and pulling Kang Min to his feet. We have a fraud case review at noon tomorrow, 3 authentication requests from European clients, and our dangerous, scandalous, absolutely legitimate life awaits. Wouldn't have it any other way, Kang Min agreed, following her toward the exit. Behind them, empty champagne glasses sat on the terrace table. Same brand from 7 years ago, same view of Seoul, different people entirely. From a drunken kiss at a gala to international scandal, from criminal trial to 5-year separation, from rebuilding to industry respect, they had built something that transcended revenge. They had built love, partnership, and the most trusted authentication firm in Asia. And every case they solved, every forgery they exposed, every client they served was a tribute to that first reckless moment when Evelyn Warren had looked at the most dangerous man in the room and begged, "Kiss me, please. I want him jealous." She had touched the Mafia boss and lived to tell the tale. Better than that, she had married him, survived him, reformed him, and built an empire with him. The best revenge wasn't just living well. It was living dangerously, passionately, legitimately, and triumphantly, together. 10 years later, Warren Kang Gallery had become the most trusted authentication firm in Asia. That scandalous kiss, now a framed photograph in their office, a reminder that the best empires are built from the worst decisions. Evelyn never regretted asking that dangerous stranger to kiss her, because sometimes touching the Mafia boss is exactly what saves you. That's it for this one, loves. If you're obsessed with forbidden romances and dangerous men who'd burn the world down for the right woman, check out the videos on your screen. More Mafia bosses, more reckless decisions, more love stories that break all the rules. I'll see you in the next one.